So again, I'm Seng Yu. I'm working in the Yonsei University in the Department of Preventive Medicine, and today is the my birthday, and this is my 35th birthday, and this is the most nervous birthday I've ever had. I do not believe that I have a English tutorial on my birthday. So this class will focus on the vocabulary mapping. So the scope of this class is not the explanation of the vocabulary system of OHDSI, but since the vocabulary system of OHDSI is really complex because it is really comprehensive and it is a very tightly controlled vocabulary system. And this is the strength of AMOP CDM, and this is why many countries adopt AMOP CDM as their CDM structure, including countries like from Europe and Asia. So in your own database, you will have the local code. Let me say that you do have the diagnosis code based on the ICD-9-CM, usually for United States. And the concept code will be look like this, 42731. And like this. And then the name of the concept will be atrial fibrillation. In OHDSI or in AMOP CDM, a single unique ID will be assigned to each concept in various vocabulary. So for this code, the number of the concept ID is 448219567 in AMOP CDM. This is not a standard concept. So you need to map this diagnosis code into standard concept in AMOP CDM. Usually we use standard CT code vocabulary for diagnosis or condition. And the right condition concept for the atrial fibrillation is this. So concept ID in AMOP CDM is 312327. The concept code of standard CT actually was 49436004, and this is the standard concept. So the process of vocabulary mapping is that assign the right concept, standard concept to each local code system. So in the condition occurrence table of AMOP CDM, the condition concept ID will be from the standard CT's concept ID, but as again, the original standard CT code is not same as concept ID in AMOP CDM. So we will use concept ID here, and source value, condition source value will be the code of ICD-9-CM, and source concept ID will be concept ID in the of the ICD-9-CM vocabulary. I just said. Do you have any questions or comments on this? So this is you need to understand this process, and we will do this during this session. Okay, I believe that most of you guys are understanding this system. So let's see how we can do this. So how to map our local code into standard concepts. For many vocabulary system, the OHDSI provides an official mapping system. So for concept code 42731, you can find this ICD-9-CM code in the OHDSI concept table using this, and we will do the exercise.
Hey, Chan, sorry, Your screen is off. You stopped sharing.
Okay. Okay.
We're back.
Okay, thanks. So what we will do is we'll do the exercise using SQL and find your original concept in the concept table of AMOP CDM. So let me say this is you want to see your original code 42731, and by using SQL code, you can find the this concept in the concept table of AMOP CDM. Then you need to translate this concept to standard. There is a concept relationship table in AMOP CDM, and there are very many relationships, and among these various relationships, there is a maps to relationship. And so if you find the official standard concept for this original concept ID, then you can find this like this SQL code. So from concept relationship table, you need to find the original concept ID, and then you need to specify the relationship ID as maps to. Then you can find the mapped concept ID, which is an official standard concept ID for AMOP CDM. And you need, at last, you need to check out this concept ID is standard concept. So again, in the concept table, you can find the concept ID 313217, and there it is. So the vocabulary ID is nomad, and the concept class ID clinical finding, and most importantly, it is standard concept. So for the standard concepts, the value of standard concept column is S. So what you need to do is doing this in SQL in the virtual box. So and the domain ID is really important in AMOP CDM. So if the vocabulary or concepts is not belong to does not belong to right domain ID, then you cannot use it. So you cannot use this concept in procedure table or in observational table. In observation table, if you want to use kind of the finding of atrial fibrillation, you need to find another concept which is standard and of which domain ID is observation. In another example, I will show you example first, and then I will show you how you can do this in your virtual box. Again, at this point, we will find a concept code 67 whatever. So it's a NDC vocabulary code, and it means clopidogrel 75 milligram. Again, this is because this is not an standard concept, so the value for standard concept column is null. And we want to translate this into standard concept. RDC provides official mapping system for NDC2. So again, we will find the official AMOP CDM concepts for the concept ID 45 anything 45 something, and you need to specify relationship ID as maps to. And then you can find the ID, the right concept ID in the right concept ID 2 column. You can see the valid start date and valid end date here, so you can find when this mapping system was established in AMOP CDM2. So this is really tightly controlled vocabulary system. And again, you need to check out this concept ID is right for you. So we will check that 1322185, or what is the concept for this in the concept table. And this is usually in drug table we use ARCS-norm vocabulary or ARCS-norm extension vocabulary for standard vocabulary system. So it is truly standard concept here, and the vocabulary ID is ARCS-norm, and domain ID is drug, and the concept place ID is branded drug. So we will the exercise. You need to find the standard concept for source code R26.2. This is the hint. before we do the exercise, I'd like to show you how you can do this in your VirtualBox. So let me share both screen. I'm sorry. Let me show you this first. So in your desktop, you can find the PostgreSQL icon here, admin 4, and double click this.
And only click it once or double click it once. It takes a while to load. If you double click it too many times, you'll actually end up bringing up multiple instances, which will slow you down quite a bit. Okay. So warning: don't click on it too many often. Don't be too clicky happy.
I'd like to see what is located in this server, and you need to enter the password. It would be OHDSI, as long as I remember. Yeah, here it is. So if you have any problem with this, please let us know. So in the database tab, there is a Postgres tab, and there is a schema here.
Actually, you want to click on the, sorry, you want to go to the OHDSI one. So
Okay.
if you click on the OHDSI one,
right.
Yeah, and then schemas,
right.
and then OHDSI,
and table.
And then the tables, yes.
Right. So again, in the PostgreSQL 10, in the databases, in the OHDSI, in the schemas, in the OHDSIs, in the tables.
So there's two in here. So one is the Cynthia data and one is the SimPuff data. If you want the Cynthia data, that's under that ETL one that's above. In here, under the OHDSI one, it's the SimPuff data. But again, either one doesn't matter because the vocabulary tables are in here. And we're really here to talk about vocabulary tables for now.
Yeah.
You want to go to tools? Yeah, there you go. Go to tools. Actually, you just want to go to the tools tab at the top. Yeah, and go query tools. Yeah. And then the other thing, what you want to do is, let me type it in, set search path to OHDSI. I think there's there's a underscore here somewhere. Hold. Let me do it myself. Because or else you're going to have to, every single time, define the schema name. And we don't want to do that. So let me remember my SQL. There's an underscore here somewhere. Let me get it myself first. Can't remember what the schema is.
Is seeking the SQL code. So again, you can see the table list here, but you know there is a 100 of tables, and so it is not easy for you to understand the whole system. And to enter type your query, and then you can click the tools menu here, and please click the query tool here.
This is the right. That's the right SQL statement. So you want to put it in there. See how you have to put OHDSI.concept. If you put what I put, then you don't have to put OHDSI anymore.
Right. So put the set search path to OHDSI.
Correct. And you can use F5 and it'll run it.
Yeah. Please enter F5 or click this Thunder button here, so you can execute your code here. You can block this a line to be executed. Let me execute this.
Yeah, and it'll come back and say query executed. So from then on, you don't have to type the schema name anymore, the OHDSI dot. You can just type select star from concept table and it'll work.
Right. Okay, let me do the show you side by side how do you can type this code in your system. So first of all, we'll just copy and paste the code in the slide, or you can type the code in the slide. Again, thanks to Mui's help, you don't need to put OHDSI in front of every table here. So you can execute this code. Select all from concept, where concept code is 437.31. And during the paste, what is that? This is.
Yeah, you have to change it. There's too many quotes in there when you paste it. Yeah, there you go.
Right. So you need to change this. What is that? What is this in English?
The apostrophe.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, well, when the paste is not pasting it properly, yeah. I can see even when I pasted it in. I put the SQL inside the chat, so if you guys want to paste it from there instead as well. But again, I think the little quote is going to be a problem. So
because it's very simple code, you can type by yourself. Let me execute this, and you can see the similar result as you saw in the slide. So it was href fibrillation, and the domain ID was condition, and vocabulary was IC9CM. And I will find the right, the official standard concept for this local vocabulary or local code. So let me execute the next code in the slide. That will find the concept ID 2 from for the concept ID 1 44821957, of which relationship ID maps to. And you can find the concept ID 2 here. So the right concept ID for us is 313217. And then you need to check whether this is right code or not. So this code, this concept is belong to the condition domain, and this is the standard of concept. So this is the right code we will use. And I think many of you are following this, but I believe that there are someone who cannot use PostgreSQL or who don't want to use SQL. So let me show you how you can do this, the similar thing in your website. So there is a Athena website for OHDSI or CDM and Vocabulary, which is maintained by the OHDSI, and you can search the vocabulary of your interest. So let me find the concept ID is. So if you want to find the OHDSI vocabulary for this concept code, 427.31. Since it was IC9CM code, you can specify the vocabulary IC9CM here. And you can find that this is href fibrillation here. If you click this, you can find you can see that this is not an this is a non-standard vocabulary concept, and the concept ID for this is 1957, and this is the ancestor terms are these concepts, and the official mapped standard vocabulary concept is 313217. Let me see this. Let me check that this is the right concept for us. So this concept, that 313217, belongs to condition domain, and it is nomadicity concept, and it is standard, so we can use it. So if you are tech people, you need to use SQL to find very large files. But if you are just if you want to just several concepts mapping, then you can use this website. And if you have any problem or questions, please let me know. If you are not, then I'm a super excellent teacher.
You are a great teacher.
Thanks. So the exercise you will do for next during your lunchtime or break time is find the standard concept for the source code R26.2. There is a hint. So this is an IC10 code, and it belongs to condition domain, and you can use concept table to find source concept ID, and you can use concept relationship table and maps to relationship ID to find standard concept ID. As shown here, I recommend you to use SQL in your VirtualBox, but if you cannot, then don't be frustrated. You can use website, and there is super great website for you, so you can use it. And I'd like to wait for your answer after lunchtime.
Well, we can have you guys do it because we have another 17 minutes, right? And
right.
This exercise should not take more than 17 minutes. So what we would like is if you guys can right now go do this. Right. I mean, using the queries that you see that we've already actually put in on the screen, as well as inside the deck, or what Chan just showed you with not Usagi, Athena. So if you guys can try to figure out the answers, we can answer your question, or if you have any problems, we can help you with that. And then from after that, we will take a break, and then we'll come back and keep going on the vocabulary mapping stuff.
I believe you are doing this on this now.
I'm sorry. I'm Ray, and can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So here, when you say standard concept, you basically means the standardized concept ID for this specific code, isn't it?
Right. Right.
So all the the code ICD-10 code, they are I mean this in this concept, it's not a standard. It's just the non-standard. ICD-10 code is not standard, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't. It is not standard code. So while others doing this exercise, let me explain what is the vocabulary system of this AMOP CDM a little bit more.
Thank you.
AMOP standard vocabulary is very unique. The all concepts is unique, but standard concept is there is a unique standard concept and there is a non-standard concept. All the concept IDs are unique, but the concept names can be overlapped. Still, among the standard concepts, the concept name and the domain ID is not overlapped. So this is quite overlap, tightly controlled vocabulary system, and there is very complex hierarchy and relationships between concepts. So many vocabularies are integrated into the AMOP CDM. So in AMOP CDM vocabulary, there are so many vocabularies. Like here, you can see that there is a SNOMED city code, there is IC9 SIM, IC9 Proc, CPT4, HIP6, LOIN, ND, FRT, ArcStorm, NDC, JPI. So many vocabularies are integrated into this system. And there is a domain ID for every concept and concept class too. So there is a selected standard vocabulary for every domain. And for condition table, we use SNOMED IC03 as a standard concept. And for procedure, we adopt various concept vocabulary system, including SNOMED, CPT4, HIP6, IC10, PCS. For measurement, we can use SNOMED or LOIN. And these are the source concepts, not only for the SNOMED veterinary. In your local database, there will be IC9 or IC10, or in Korea, it will be KC7. So all you need to map your source concepts to standard concepts. Even though you are using SNOMED CT concepts vocabulary system in your local table, local database, you need to find the right concept ID of OMOP CDM for the conversion. So all details are located in the concept table, and concept ID is, again, concept ID in OMOP CDM is very unique, and the original concept code, we usually say this is a code. So the concept ID is different from the code in OMOP CDM, and there is a very complex hierarchical system. So is it enough for you as an answer?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, and okay, ready for my PC screen. Then let me show you how to do your exercise then. So this is the exercise. You need to find a standard concept for source code R26.2. We'll find this, and there is a hint. So again, use the code above. We will find source code R26.2. Then there it is. You can find that concept name is difficulty in walking. That else will classify, and the vocabulary ID was IC9 CM, and it belongs to condition. Then we need to find the map official map concept for this concept ID. So the concept ID for this concept IC10 code is 3535 or something. And we will find the correct concept by using the code above. And here it is. The concept ID 2 was 437643. Then I need to check whether this is a standard code concept in OMOP CDM. There it is. The concept name is abnormal gate. This is an observation. This belongs to observation domain ID, and vocabulary ID is SNOMED, and this is a standard concept. So can we use this concept ID to convert? And since it belongs, the original concept ID concept code belonged to diagnosis, then can we use this concept ID in conditional occurrence? No answer? Please answer. Oh, yeah. Jacob said yes. Very good answer. Okay. Let me show you and let me show you the slide. Okay. So we found.
Sorry, Chan, before you go there, because some people are still trying to get to the box or
Okay.
trying to get Odyssey. So you only need to set the search path once. Once you do that, and all of your select statements that I see on your screen, you only run it once, okay? You have to run them one at a time. Don't run all of them at the same time, because if you run all of them at the same time, it's not going to return anything to you. So what you have to do, like what Chan was showing you, if you execute the first one, can you execute that first one again, Chan? The R one. No, sorry, the select star where the concept code equals R. Yeah, that guy. So you have to first hit this guy, because this will look up. So this is the concept table. And the concept table, as you can see below, has like the concept name, the concept ID, the domain, the vocabulary, and all that fun stuff. It's a lookup table for every concept that exists inside the Odyssey vocabulary. And we have both source and and standard codes in there. But what you have to get from there is the ID, because what you need to do is from that table, look up the ID, the concept ID, not the concept code, because what we do is everything is by IDs, right? And then go to the relationship table, and that's why he changed that ID on that second select statement to the concept ID 1 to that 352111327. So that first query just really gets you that concept ID so that you can put it in that second query. And what's the purpose of the second query? The second query is what we call the relationship table. And that's a table that goes and gets us basically all the relationships that's tied to any two concepts. It's very vague. It's concept 1 versus concept 2 and the relationship, right? In our case, we're trying to figure out what the standard is, and that's why we use the relationship ID of maps 2. Technically, there are a ton of different relationships out there. There's subsumes, that's is a, there's related to, there's all kinds of different type of relationship. But because for us, we're only trying to figure out what the standard is, because in ETL, what you need to be able to do is take your source data and map it to the standard vocabulary. Because inside all of our fact tables, all the transactional tables, you will have a drug concept ID, you will have a condition concept ID, you will have a procedure concept ID. All those, what's expected to sit in those IDs is that standard concept ID. Not your source code, not your source ID, but the standard concept ID. And that's why we're doing this exercise of mapping, right? So that you know how to map to find the standard. And the way to do that is using that relationship ID of maps too. Now, those are for the ones that already exist inside our vocabulary. You're part of this exercise we're showing you is that the ones that exist, that's how you get to it. And then Chan's going to show you the ones that don't exist and how you do those, right? So there's two kinds of vocabulary that you're looking at, what we call standardized vocabulary and then what you call custom vocabulary mapping. So here you're doing standardized mapping, okay? So, and that's what that second step is. The second step is about finding what was my source code and what it maps to in my standard. So if you can select the second one, Chan.
Yep.
The second statement right there. What it's going to give you is really the ID of your standard. So concept ID 1 is my native code. Concept ID 2 in this case is my standard code, is my standard concept ID code or standard ID. And because of the fact that we use the relationship of maps too. If you use a different relationship, I'm not guaranteeing you that concept ID is going to be the standard, okay? Again, this is it's an abstract way of looking at things. And then the third query that he wrote here is just so that if you want to know what that standard ID is. So what we're saying is that our 26.2 in ICD and CM maps to a abnormal, this abnormal disease here. But what you're going to notice here is that its domain is observation. It's an observation. It is not a condition. Okay. It is not saying that it's a diagnosis. And that's one thing that we in the vocabulary of OHDSI does. It maps it to the different domains. And that's very important in ETL, because in ETL, because this record says a domain of observation, you're actually going to map this record from the diagnosis table in your original data to the observation table, observation occurrence table in OMOP. You are not mapping this guy to the condition occurrence table. So that's why we come here. That's why we're showing you this. One is to show you what it maps to. Two is for you to pay attention to that domain, because that is very key when it's mapping.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
So, I mean, what fundamentally about abnormal gait makes it an observation versus a condition? I mean, is there some underlying reasoning there, or that's just how it's been applied other places, or?
There is an underlying reason for it. Now, I'm not a medical expert. You can probably figure that out by now. I'm not a medical expert. I'm a techie geek, so I can talk the geek language here. But most likely it's because of the word abnormal. But again, don't quote me on this. This would be something if you had a medical. That's why originally you saw I said that we need a medical expert, right? Yeah. Because you can look at some of these mappings and start questioning them. Right, yeah. Because maybe they're not right, and we're not saying in the OHDSI community we're guaranteeing 100% that everything is right. Okay, yep. 99.9 maybe, but just not 100%. So what you can ask in the community, sorry, I have to stand up sitting for too long. What you can go then ask in the community is say, hey, in the vocabulary user section, hey, I noticed this mapping. Can you explain to me why this is being mapped to observation and not being mapped to conditions? And the community, which the vocabulary team does have a bunch of medical experts in them, they will explain to you why it's not. But from reading it, my gut feeling is because it's more of an observation that it's an abnormal gut, or whatever that word is, G-A-I-T. Gait, sorry, you see, I'm telling you, I'm not a medical person, right? That it's describing an abnormality, which is an observation, and not that they actually have a condition itself. So that's the way I can, again, I'm not a medical person, but I'm going to try to explain this as good as I can, right? Conditions for us is more of that it's an actual something that occurred to the person, and it's an actual disease of some kind to a degree, right? Gotcha. So that's why we call it a condition. Versus, you know, like, for example, other things that might get changed are injections. So I get that a lot, right? A lot of systems typically with injections, at least in the United States, because it's a procedure, somebody's injecting something into me, and I get charged for that injection cost, right? The actual person putting the needle in me. But in observational research, we're looking at what happened to the patient. We're not looking at the fact that they got injected. Yes, you can, because that's a route. But really what I'm looking at is, what did they get injected with? They got injected with an insulin. So at that point in time, that insulin injection is actually a drug, right? And it really goes with a lot of research. At least in the United States, we do that a lot. We have these things called J codes, right, which are all the injections. And when I actually have to go and look at drugs, my medical team always looks at those J codes anyways. They're like, oh, I got to include those because they were injected with that drug. So that's why in observational research, we say it's a drug. So you'll see the domain map to drug. So again, if you question the domain, which, hey, is 100% valid, because again, we're only 99.999% right. It is, you can put it out there. And if there's a debate and if it's wrong, then they will change it. So there are times when they do things like that, that it does change.
Okay, thanks. That's very helpful. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, and there is another question that, isn't there any other relationship between the standard vocabulary? So there is actually many relationship among the standard vocabulary. Like here, so there's a like the concept ID 313217, which was the standard vocab concept for href relation, has a various relationship with other vocabulary. Like this is AFib is associate finding of the other concept ID or some names of the other concept IDs. So there are very many concept relationships, and this is a very powerful system of OHDSI. And so because we are about to the time for break session, I'd like to give you an exercise. Yep. So again, this is what I want to share, that the ICD-10 code can be mapped to various domain IDs like condition, procedure, observation, measurement. So you need to be careful, and it is sometimes you cannot agree with it, but this is a consensus of OHDSI, and you need to please be careful. So the procedure concept cannot be exist in concept table. You have to map. You need to populate the data for this Z315 to procedure table, or you need to map family history of stroke to observation table, not condition occurrence table. So please be careful, and this is a consensus between across the OHDSI community.
Okay, so I know, Chan, we can go through this when we come back from the break, right?
Yeah.
So what I know, it's already 2.5 hours in, and I want to make sure conscientious of the time. Now, we did go over by 3 minutes now. I know there's a bunch of other questions in the chat as well. So what I would like to suggest right now is to give everybody that hour break, and then we'll come back, answer all those questions, and then Chan will keep going with the lecture about more information about how the vocabulary works. And then he'll go into why you need custom vocabulary, because again, there's two parts. We're talking about standardized vocabulary that's already in the community that you can utilize, that's free out there. You can download all that via Athena, versus this section that we're going to use the Usagi tool for. So again, on my side, it's 34 at the hour, so we're going to come back an hour from now, right? So
Yeah.
whatever time it is, so at the half hour. I know Australia, you're probably at the top of the hour, so come back at the top of the hour in the next hour, okay?